Welcome everyone to the beautiful city of Cape Town. With its rich cultural heritage and its geographical location at the southern tip of Africa, it's a mecca for tourists and sailors alike. With the beautiful backdrop of Table Mountain, it's a veritable playground for all that visit. With a 2-week break, everyone's had the chance of experiencing some of the magic of South Africa. Cape Town, a very important stopover for the Volvo Ocean Race, having hosted 10 of the last 12 races here. It's a moment for teams to collect their thoughts, sometimes reshuffle their crew, and prepare for the Southern Ocean leg. Diving deep down into the roaring 40s, with breeze up to 70 knots, don't let the carnival atmosphere fool you. This is going to be life at the extreme. Let's take a look back at leg 2 and how the boats arrived here from Lisbon. Here we go, the start of leg 2 from Lisbon to Cape Town, the iconic leg down into the South Atlantic. It is go, go, go.
We are now full speed in 30 to 35 knots wind. Well, it's quite intense.
Doldrums can, create an awful lot of mix-up, and for sure these leaders are going to start losing miles. So what we're losing right now, we'll definitely get back a chunk of that, if not more.
Finally out of the doldrums now, pretty much. The one thing that doldrums has done is brought the fleet back together. I think still just as hard, maybe even harder.
Santa Helena High, we'll jibe and go to fight the front, and it's going to be a very good ride all the way to Cape Town. It's going to be 20-25 knots and wind, so hopefully it's fast and good sailing as well.
Finally heading towards Cape Town now. We've managed to get ourselves into the lead now, which is great, but it's a pretty tight battle with Vestas and Dongting and Brunel.
Well, there's been plenty of drama, but now we are for the import race here in Cape Town. And we've got live pictures of the spectacular and beautiful Table Mountain with Cape Town nestled underneath. To the left, that's Devil's Peak. Cape Town, a city of 2 million or so with 11 different official languages. It's quite the city, and it is stunning to be here and part of the Volvo Ocean Race. So, let's take a look back at the Alicante and Lisbon import race highlights. Matt Frey coming in on port, not looking like a good start from Matt Frey at all. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here come across the fleet on port, ducking under 5 of the boats is Matt Frey, the local heroes. Now we're watching Matt Frey go out towards the right-hand side of the racecourse. It just looks a little bit to me that the left-hand side of the racecourse is going a little softer, and that's where the majority of the fleet going at the moment. It is Matt Frey showing a clean pair of heels, doing a very nice job. A couple of boat lengths from the line. Pablo Arate helming the boat beautifully as they push the bow down, and there they go, take the win.
The winner of the Matt Frey import race is Team Matt Frey!
Sung Hoon Kai Scallywag looked great on start with the 2 boats on port. Turpentine on plastic and Axo Nobel both having to avoid. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, and that is the gun. Start looks all clear. What a super start. Team Brunel first to the first windward mark here in the Mirapuri Foundation import race. But wow, how close is this? Amazing racing. Matt Frey done a super job of closing them down. Brunel lead, continue to lead around the bottom mark. Under pressure though from the Spanish team, Matt Frey. Look at the puff and breeze here. Look at the speed of Matt Frey. Maybe they're going to get around them. Rob Greenhouse looking very closely. Look at that, just easing a little bit of main sheet out. Oh, power on. Can they get to them? Brunel now have the puff as well. Brunel win. Amazing. Matt Frey in second. Dongfeng race team in third. So let's take a quick look at the overall standings of the import series. Matt Frey lead with 13 points, and then Team Brunel and Dongfeng race team both tied on 11 for the podium positions. Okay, a few days ago we sent the helicopter up for these beautiful pictures of Robben Island, now a national nature reserve, and this is where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated for 18 of his 27 years. Just last week was the anniversary of his death, and there was quite an event here in South Africa. So let's have a look at earlier on today with some highlights from the Dockout show. Tikafari ever happy, and followed by Sunwoo Kai Scallywag, David Witt, the skipper. Here we go, Axo Nobel. Right down the dot with the Dongfeng race team. Followed behind them is Vestas 11th Hour Racing and Matt Frey. Skip Novak we caught up with, legend of the Volvo Ocean race. Bauer Becking always giving the crowd something to cheer about. Let's take a look at the weather with these live pictures. Plenty of breeze out there, 20 to 25 knots. We had a little update of about 18 to 19. Fairly flat seas and a westerly breeze. They call that a clean air because it comes, it doesn't get disturbed by Table Mountain, and it actually takes away a lot of bad air from the city. So they call that the Cape Town Doctor. Let's take a look at the course. Go down towards the start and then upwind to gate 1. They can go around either of those two gates. I'm joined at the commentary booth by SCA helmswoman Sally Barkow. Sally, talk us through.
Yeah, they're going to have a couple turning marks today through the gates 3 times around, I think. And I think we're going to see a lot of action at these marks with the steady westerly breeze. It's all going to be about who can manage to turn the marks well.
Plenty of breeze out there. We've got, well, sort of 18 to 22 right now. What sort of sail combinations are we likely to see today?
I think the teams are going to be looking to set up as easy as possible with the 20, you know, tapping into 20 knots of wind. They can easily be on the J2, and you know, then they can just furl that sail up downwind, not have to drop it and rehoist it. They're going to conserve a lot of energy. We'll probably be on the A3s because it's a clean downwind run, clean jibes, and like I said, it's going to be boat on boat around the marks, I think.
Well, with 1 minute to go, I've got to say, we've been really blessed with some of the most amazing conditions in Alicante and Lisbon and now here in Cape Town. Remember, folks, this is the import race, and we've got now action on the water. 48 seconds to go, and are coming together between Vestas 11th Hour Racing and Matt Frey right in the middle of the racecourse. Matt Frey looked like they had a very close tack to leeward of Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and maybe that's just a little idea of some of the spice to come, where those two are right at the top of the leaderboard. And Axo Nobel now on port, so they have to keep clear. Sunwoo Kai Scallywag on starboard at the bottom of your screen. We've got one boat missing, Team Brunel. Where are they? Matt Frey decide they're not actually going to lay the pin. Look at that, with only 15 seconds to go. Matt Frey jibing out way to the left of screen. And here come Brunel towards the right-hand side. They look okay there. I think everyone a little late here. 7-6. Here we go for the gun. 3, 2, 1. And that's the gun. A beautiful start from D. Kafari and Turn the Tide on Plastic. Dongfeng race team just to leeward with Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Axo Nobel a little bit back. Brunel at the windward end with Sunwoo Kai Scallywag. not a great start from Matt Frey at all. Sally, thoughts?
Yeah, I wonder if they tacked too close there. There might have been a penalty, I'm not sure. Or maybe they had a little bit of a situation they needed to jibe out. To me, they could have cleared the pin, so I think something else might have happened.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a penalty. We did just mention that they tacked pretty close to Vestas 11th Hour Racing. And now all the boats just straining at the leash on starboard, going upwind. Di Cafori did a beautiful job, but all the boats 3 or 4 seconds late. A little bit of current maybe, or just a bit more breeze, so slightly gun shy. We've got Virtual Eye giving us the route of the boats off the Omega start line. Just hear some of the effects of the sailors on board calling the wind. Why do they do that, Sally, calling the breeze in?
They're calling the breeze in to change modes. Right now, it looks like most of the boats are on these a little bit smaller jibs, and therefore they're going to power up as much as they can in the light stuff. Maybe that's why we saw some of the boats off the starting line, because they're in a little bit of lighter patch. Without the big J1s, they just have a little less power driving through the water, so they're really sensitive to the lulls.
Yeah, it's actually a little lighter than we've had over the last hour or so. Dongfeng race team have been given really bad air from Vestas 11th Hour Racing, who've rolled over the top of them, and Dongfeng race team have had to put the bow down and go fast downwind. So it looks quite close between Vestas 11th Hour Racing, Turn the Tide on Plastics, Sunghunkai Scallywag, Team Brunel, Axel Nobel and Matt Frey have all had to go towards this right-hand side and clear out. Dongfeng race team sailing in slightly bad air on that left-hand side of the racecourse. Shifty, there'll be a few shifts here, not as much as we'd see it if it was coming over Table Mountain, but still shifty. Sally.
Shifty, yeah, and I think unsteady. I mean, shifty and unsteady the same, but we don't see the dramatic shifts, but you can see the streaks on the water there, and that's where you're going to see the boats make a gain or loss on each other. I think there you can see the difference. If they had the J1s up there, we have so much more sail area in the front of the boat, balancing the whole boat out, making it easier to drive and accelerate in the lulls.
So the J2 smaller than the J1, and that's why they've got it, because there's plenty of breeze. But it does mean that if the breeze goes under 18, and it looks now like it's more like 15 or 16, so quite light, but they're all on the J2. Split in the fleet. 4 boats going to the left. Matt Frey now quite a long way behind. I wonder if that's a penalty. We're going to try and get some information from on the water, but we haven't had any official word about any sort of penalty for Matt Frey. It may have just been that they felt they couldn't lay that pin end at the start, so had to bail out, and they decided to do it early. That's why Matt Frey are quite a long way down. That's not good for them, because they're currently leading the import race standings.
Yeah, and one thing we've seen with them continuously is their boat speed. So this is the ultimate test. You know, when you're out in front and you're fast, it's a lot easier to stay out in front. But when you're behind like this and you have good boat speed, it's a proven fact that you should be able to climb back to the fleet.
Yeah. Axo Nobel now tacking onto starboard, so we've got all the boats now on starboard tack, heading towards the first upwind mark. The wind direction 290 degrees. The upwind leg 1.6 nautical miles, 3 laps around. Obviously we've seen the upwind start, traditional way to start a race. But for those of you new to sailing, this is the precursor to the start of leg 3, which is from Cape Town to Melbourne around the Southern Ocean, 6,500 miles. And these import races are a way for the crews to familiarise themselves with the boats and get racing in the ports that they stop in, and they gain points during the import races. And if there is a tie-break at the end of the Volvo Ocean Race, 45,000 miles of racing, if there's a tie on points, it will go down to the import race, whoever did best in the import race series. There's also a bonus point for the shortest elapsed time for all 12 legs around the world. Great pictures, lovely. And we've got Axo Nobel here, which is with them on the right-hand side of the race course. There's a rubber boat, and our cameraman Shane is in there.
There'll be a lot of communication going on, you know, these boats, and that's something that they'll, even though the import scores only count for the ties.
Now look at the little telltales they're called, the little bits of wool on the sails. Sally, explain to us what those do.
So that's just describing the flow of air as it's going across the sail. Since you can't see wind particles, then we use the wool or the telltales to describe the flow. And you want them flying up like that, a little bit disturbed on the windward side of the sail, flowing quite nicely on the leeward side of the sail. And that's going to create, maximum flow, maximum lift around the back of the sail, and that's what propels the boat through the water.
Yeah, it's a sort of guide like you'd have on an aeroplane wing, just to tell you whether you're close to stalling out the sails, and it gives you a guide of the flow over the sails. And helmsmen and trimmers look at that constantly throughout the race.
Yeah, and you saw there's some on the front sail on the jib, and there's some on the mainsail there, and these two sails work independently of each other, so they're really trying to balance each other out, and that's how they can measure it, basically.
Vestas 11th Hour Racing currently leading now. They're on starboard tack as they head upwind. Turn the Tide on Plastic have decided to bail out. They're on port tack, so if you're on port, you have to... here we go, on board with Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Let's listen in. Charlie Enright jibing. Jenna Mai Hansen has been given the job of grinding. Presumably that's because her power to weight ratio is probably better than anybody else's. Very, very impressive on the leg 2 that she sailed on with Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Very bright, positive. She got a huge amount of good feedback, and they're taking her again on leg 3.
She really looked like she was enjoying it, huh?
Right.
Even in the big stuff, yeah.
Right, she did.
She's into it.
Great attitude, and that is very important, and an amazing sailor too.
Yeah, I think she adds a lot to this team, a lot of balance and performance. You know, these boats are really turning into really, it's all about one design racing against each other, and she adds a lot with that.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we're with the virtual eye right now, the tracker. You can hear the audio.
You got 45 on the other, there to the right turn.
Simon Fisher talking about how many minutes they've got to sail on start, how long it is to the ley line. Pictures of Turn the Tide on Plastic. Vestas 11th Hour Racing tacking. Turn the Tide on Plastic have decided to take, here we go, on board, tacking. So the main sheet trimmer grinding, the runners on. So they're talking about a right-hand turn at the top. They can shoot 4 minutes to go. Sci-Fi, the navigator, calling it. He's helped with a computer on board.
And the timing there is important because they have to make a choice when to hoist the A3. And I would expect just inside 2 minutes there, they're going to be, they have it already plugged in. You see them lying on the big Gennikers lying on the front decks there. And probably inside 2 minutes to the mark, you'll start to see that getting hoisted on the lock, get the tack down so they can deploy it right when they turn around the mark and be really fast.
Okay, let's go down to the water, see if we've got Nick Bice, a veteran of the race, and now an employee of Volvo helping us all get around the world. Nick Bice, give us the synopsis from on the water.
Oh, fantastic conditions out here. I couldn't find a better bay for sailing and for this import race. Vestas are looking strong here, but I think they have overstepped the mark a little bit, so they'll be coming in extremely quick, I would say.
Okay, and what have you got for wind conditions? It looks like it was a bit lighter than we expected at the start as the breeze popped up a bit.
Yeah, a bit lighter at the start. I think there's more breeze in the left, and that's why we saw Vestas, 11th Hour, Scallywag and Brunel head out there. And looks as though it's a little left-hand shift there also. So, but up here we've got a solid 20 to 22 knots, I would say.
Okay, we've got the Vestas wind monitor up on the screen, and it is showing exactly what Nick Bice has just said, 271, and we started the bearing at 290, so it's gone left 19 degrees, and that will benefit the boats in the right. But if they went too far to the right, Sally, that means that they could overstand the mark, which is what Nick was suggesting.
Yeah, and that's just extra distance sailed. You can see there, well, when it pans out, you probably see the Vestas maybe sailing a few extra boat lengths over the ley line. What you can do is put the bow down and maybe go a few knots faster, but if you've sailed more distance, you might not be able to make that back up with your boat speed.
Perhaps an opportunity for Di Kafari and Turn the Tide on Plastic. She had a great start. Here we go. Look on Dongfeng race team. They are raising that A3 right now. What are the dangers involved in doing that in this breeze?
Yeah, the dangers are, well, not much anymore. I think they've cut down the A3 a little bit since the last race, where there was a big chance they could unfurl in the big breeze if you hoisted it too soon, but they should all have really clean furls right now. They're going to hoist them, get them on the locks, and then when they get closer to the mark, you actually have to grind the tack, the bottom of the sail down to get a bit more tension on it before you deploy. So right now, no risk, just maybe a little loss with windage by having an extra sail up in the air.
And Di Kafari here on the left of screen, they haven't put up their A3 yet. Do you think they just wait to tack and then put it up after the tack?
Yeah, for sure. These boats, you can do one. It's really nice to do one maneuver at a time. So get the tack through, get the boards up, and then it's going to be all hands on pedestals to get the A3 in the air as quickly as possible.
Okay, Nick Bice, it looks like that left has come good. What say you?
Absolutely. I think Dongfeng have gone very nicely here. They tacked a lot earlier than everyone and been able to sail close haul all the way up here. And they also did something very, very smart by having a hoisting line to get that A3 in the air to avoid the risk of dropping in the water or getting stuck behind the spreaders on the mast.
So that hoisting line, what's that? A little extra a line that you put around the middle that helps you get it up?
Yeah, basically it's a line that runs from the end of the bowsprit up to the head of the mast. So as you hoist the sail, it runs no risk of getting caught behind any of the other sails.
And it looks like there may be a split here at the top. Dongfeng race team want to go back towards the left-hand side. Vestas maybe won't tack at the top. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think Dongfeng is setting up nicely to get down to that left-hand side of the course to get more breeze. And Vestas are actually tacking as we speak now. They get the same idea. But we're going to have a pretty nice port starboard situation at this top mark between Dongfeng and SHK Scallywag and Brunel. Dongfeng at this stage just clearing just in front, I would say.
Well, it's Vestas 11th Hour Racing leading around the first mark of the Cape Town in-port race. Second around the top mark, the Dongfeng race team managed to get themselves out of a tricky start situation. Great sailing on the upwind leg. In third around the top mark, Sung Hung Kai Scallywag. In fourth, it is Turn the Tide on Plastic. In fifth, Team Brunel. Very close racing. Sung Hung Kai Scallywag a little late to pull up their A3. Still hoisting. In sixth place, it's Axo Nobel. And in seventh, in an unusual position in the import race, it's Matt Frey. Brunel unrolling their newly branded A3. Look at that. That looks like it's got Pierre Mondrian as their special guest on board, the famous Dutch artist. He's got some of his work there on the front of their A3. Lovely to bring a bit of culture to this sailing world. You can see that in the most famous museums all around the world. The father of modern art, I think they say, or something. Anyway, I should probably get off subjects I know nothing about and stick to a bit of sailing. Beautiful pictures of Team Brunel as they come downwind. That A3 drawing nicely, keeping up their A2 jib. Sally, will we see that across the course?
Probably. I mean, it's just an extra maneuver to furl it, but through the jibe, it's no big deal. You just transfer the sheet over. If they want it out of the way, it's a simple maneuver. But right now, it's you know, they're offshore. You would sail with maybe this combination for extra power. So it shouldn't be hurting their slot, the sail, the space between the sails to let the airflow go. It should be just fine.
Yeah. We've got a few crew changes on board, which we'll update you with. We've got crew change on Brunel. Luis Balakan is now on board, and he's sailed with Bauer Becking previously in the Volvo Ocean Race, and Bauer said he's one of the best helmsmen he's ever sailed with. You can turn the instruments off and he goes faster and faster. A real skill. Okay, going downwind, Vestas 11th Hour Racing battling with Dongfeng race team for the lead. Let's go on board.
Diving in first class.
Prepping for a jibe.
I just want to get out for a moment. Okay, ready this way. Ley line in at 300, okay? 30 this way. Tony, just leave us out for a minute.
Ley line in 300 metres.
We get a little bit of mine on. Stand by. You got it right. Okay, 20. Nope. After the waves, yeah?
They're just picking their spot through the waves.
Line in a 140 wind angle now. Yeah, got a slow line there now, just.
So that's Simon Fisher, the navigator.
Stand by here, yeah? Team coming in.
Here we go, on board for the jibe.
Here we go. Hit it.
Oh, that boom come across real fast.
Yeah, the aft pedestal there goes full on the main sheet just to make sure they stay in control for the jibe, and then they clip in, and now you see him helping with the front sail. But yeah, tricky maneuver, a lot of hands on it.
Yeah, it's a sort of ballet movement, perfectly choreographed as they go through, but unlike ballet, you have a little bit of wind and puffy conditions to take into account as they go. There they are, grinding away, and they're grinding in the A3. Oh, look at that, they are off away to the races. That is fast.
Looks like they furled up their J2 versus Dongfeng just has theirs loose, and who knows, I'd be interesting to see if you have any speed differences at the end for the having one furled up or not.
Looks like they may be slightly over ley line.
Yeah.
Only takes...
Yeah.
Planning and preparation on board. Jib out, early furl.
Hey, I just put another wrap on.
So this is a downwind leg. For those of you new to sailing, they sailed upwind into the wind where they have to tack up into the wind. You can't sail straight, otherwise you just flap the sails. And then when they come downwind, the wind is pushing them down. But similarly, you have to jibe downwind to get the best angle and get those sails as fast as possible. Now look, very strange on the A3 right at the front. It's sort of, it isn't pulling properly, Sally. Does that give you an indication that they're sailing high, they're over ley line?
Exactly, so they're sailing higher into the wind than they need to because they overshot the ley line, but they're going really fast, and basically you heard them call for an early furl, which means another indicator that they're over the ley. They're gonna have to furl up that sail early before they actually get to the mark. Maybe an indication of I mean, we know it's shifty out there, maybe an indication of a little right-hand shift as they've come down the first run here.
40 seconds to the furl. It's all about timing, planning. Oh, it's great to listen on board.
Big gains on that as they turn that to that left-hand side of the course, which makes me think that this right-hand shift is strong.
Oh, they're under pressure from the Dongfeng race team, who are all roped up, charging into the bottom, doing 20 knots. Only 100 meters or so. It'll all be about a good furl and a clean rounding right here. Let's listen in. Rolling up the A3. Team Brunel behind have lost out big time. Pretty neat furl, no problems there. Around the bottom mark after an incredible charge down towards this leeward buoy. Vestas 11th Hour Racing leading. Dongfeng race team in second, jibing around the other mark. They're making a split. It's going to be a big wind-up for the Dongfeng race team. Got to get those sails in. In third, Matt Frey have come from 7th and now come around in a podium position. That is a well-drilled machine. Into the bottom in 5th, 6th and 7th.
We don't want to get behind the boat.
Axo Nobel, Team Brunel, and Turn the Tide on Plastic. No sign of Sung Hun Kai Scallywag, so this may be... So, around the bottom mark in 4th, it's Axo Nobel. In 5th, Turn the Tide on Plastic. Almost even as they go around the bottom mark. Brunel around the bottom mark in 6th. Let's go down to the water for an update from Nick Bice. Tell us.
Yeah, it looks as though they're all heading out to the left there to get that breeze again. Vestas in a, not a covering position, but just protecting their position. But what happened on that downwind and why we don't see Sung Hun Kai Scallywag within the pictures is that little luffing incident between them and Brunel, which resulted in a penalty turn for SHK Scallywag.
There we go, Sung Hun Kai Scallywag getting a little penalty turn. They'll be sorry about that for sure, but the umpires are on scene to make sure all is fair in love and war on the racecourse. And they deemed that Sung Hun Kai Scallywag did not keep clear.
Do you want us to wait for Scally or head back up?
And Scally will be down in a minute or so as they come down to the bottom mark. Vestas 11th Hour Racing have got to try and defend against the Dongfeng race team. We saw that left-hand side being quite beneficial on the first upwind leg, so Dongfeng race team are getting married to that left-hand side. Will that give them the union that they want to be able to get ahead of Vestas 11th Hour Racing? Here comes Sung Hun Kai Scallywag down to the bottom mark. Oh, quite conservative on board right there. 20 knots of breeze. Let's go back down to Nick Bice. Nick, just give us an update on the wind conditions. Puffy, shifty, what's the wind speed?
In the middle of the course here, we're probably 19 to 20. Definitely more is in the left-hand side. So I expect Dong to pick that up early and nick that left-hand shift also. Looking in a nice position, Dongfeng. And then we're going to be a lot closer than they were at the bottom mark between Dongfeng and just 11th hour.
Pictures of Sung Hun Kai Scallywag, David Witt on the helm. There's Anamika Bess on the lured winch grinders. I think that's Fish with his hat on back to front there, giving a hand on the grinding pedestal. And look at that, Dongfeng race team owning that left-hand side, and that may be very beneficial for them when they come back together. They have to tack, and if the Dongfeng race team tackle to port, they will have to keep clear of Vestas 11th Hour Racing, who are on starboard. There's the old rules of the road of sailing. Vestas 11th Hour on starboard currently, well, it's pretty even between the two of them right now as they go upwind. Axo Nobel have done nicely to get back into this race, as have Matt Frey, currently leading the overall import race scoring. There we go, zooming in on Vestas 11th Hour Racing. All looks very well balanced, nice trim on the mainsail. For those sailing experts, this is worth a look. And that's we can listen in as well.
Pressure coming down. Watch the numbers.
Pressure coming down.
Not playing much traffic.
Charlie Enright saying we're just a little slow here, Tuny, who's trimming the mainsail, so it's like just ease the mainsail a little bit, allow me to bow, don't go fast, Sally.
Yeah, and you can see a little bit of chop on the bow there. I think they're just trying to push through it, and like we said, in those lulls, you just gotta make sure you're not getting too high and slow, and sometimes the main being too tight can really load up the wheel, you know, load up the helm and make it all feel quite stuck and not free.
Nick Dana there, a resident of Newport, Rhode Island. He's the bowman on Vestas 11th Hour Racing. He's done this race plenty of times and he looks pretty relaxed, but he's just tying up the A3 there, make sure it doesn't snake out and try and escape.
Exactly, so they have one tack in, whether they go to ley line or not, and yeah, kind of what Nick was saying before, you don't need that dragging in the water at all, and keep it nice and tidy in case a wave does come over the bow, even though it looks pretty flat out there at the moment, but don't need it flying around anywhere.
Now there's Simon Fisher, the navigator, on the windward side. Dongfeng race team just owning that left-hand side. The question is, can they tack across in front of Vestas 11th Hour Racing? That's the battle for the lead right now. Here they go. Dongfeng race team tacking onto port. This is the moment to have your eyes up, folks. Can Dongfeng race team, the Chinese team skippered by Charles Caudrelier, squeeze around Vestas 11th Hour Racing? And they gave a little bit away at the bottom mark to go around that left-hand mark. We said it wasn't a very good rounding. The sails weren't in properly, and they had a big wind-up to get the sails done properly. Okay, look, now you can see Charles is moving down to the leeward wheel. It's going to be, that gives you a really good idea it's going to be close, right, Sally?
That's right. They have to watch the bow of the other boat, and if they can get across in, they will push for it.
Here they go, look, bow to bow. This is close as anything. So Dongfeng race team have definitely made gains into this upwind leg. Oh, it's going to be close. We're on virtual right now. Here we are, real pictures, beautiful shot. Look at that. The boat on the left has to keep clear, the red boat. The boat on the right, Vestas 11th Hour Racing, are on starboard, so they are in the advantage position, and that's why there's a duck a dip from Dongfeng race team. Oh, nice and close. You want to keep it as close as you can without touching, right, Sally? You've done that a few times.
That's right, and sometimes your bowman will be up there waving you clear, but really it's on the helm to make sure that you don't run into the back of the other boat. You want to come in nice and, you want to be aiming the boat back up as you're crossing the stern of the other boat, really trying to minimize the loss. But nice gains on Dongfeng by going out on the left.
Now a difficult decision for Vestas 11th Hour Racing, because when they come to tack back, and if they come back together, Dongfeng race team now have that starboard position, and that is, as we saw, a good place, because if it gets close and a boat comes at you on port, they then have to avoid you. And we'll see this play out as we get towards the top mark. This is fascinating. This is all getting pretty spicy down there. And with that, let's go down to our friend Bicey.
Very good work there by Dongfeng. And this is what it's all about. Where I'm from, it's a good port starboard under the Table Mountain. This is what it's all about for an inshore race. Plenty of breeze, plenty of spectators. Fantastic.
Excellent, thank you, Bicey. And what do you think when these boats come back together? Are Dongfeng going to be able to make a lead change stick here?
Yeah, to that mark at the top of the gate. So they'll be setting up for ensure that they get down the left-hand side on the run. As for the positioning, going to be bow to bow once again.
Okay, it's going to be very close. This leg 3 of 6, 3 full laps around. There's the helicopter just in shot there, getting some great pictures. This is the battle for the lead between the Dongfeng race team and Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Akzo Nobel just behind them have now tacked onto port. And underneath them it's Mapfre, and that left-hand side maybe has come good for Akzo Nobel as well, Sally.
Yeah, it looks like they're maybe just to windward of Mapfre there and made gains. The interesting thing here is how many tacks boats are doing on this beat. We saw Mapfre do a tack to the middle, so now they're 3 tacks in, where maybe Akzo Nobel's only 1 tack in. Dongfeng's 1 tack ahead of Vestas 11th Hour, and maybe that's where we're seeing the gains made, where you just minimize your maneuvers and get to your ley lines.
Dongfeng is Chinese for east wind, and that gives them they're looking for a little bit of right-handed breeze here just to get back at Vestas 11th Hour Racing. As close as they come into the top here. This is the place to keep your eyes on, folks. The battle for first place here in this import race in Cape Town. Great conditions. 20 knots of breeze and a relatively flat sea. Very flat, actually. Looks quite sailable. This is very nice indeed. And can Dongfeng, it looks like there's been a slight left-hand shift, actually. Bicey down on the water. Can you still hear us? Has there been a little bit of a left-hand shift? Maybe that's good for Vestas 11th Hour Racing.
Yeah, as the boats have made their way up to the top of the course, it's gone a little bit left. So we could almost see Dongfeng laying at the right-hand mark here, but I would say they are going to tack and go for the left, so they can get that more breeze down in the left-hand corner of the actual course.
You can still see more breeze on that left-hand side for the downwind, is that right?
Yeah, that's definitely the feel, what we can see from here, and can just see Dongfeng now hoisting.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay, we can see the A3s now being hoisted. Vestas 11th Hour Racing just a little bit ahead of Dongfeng.
On the hoist there, yeah. I mean, it's a full coordination, but get them in the air. And you saw there the trailing line, bringing it up, the headstay there, making it nice, clean hoist.
Vestas 11th Hour Racing coming straight towards us. Remember, they can choose either of the marks at the top of the racecourse. There's left-hand and right-hand marks, and it may be that Vestas 11th Hour Racing can lay into one of these marks. It doesn't have to tack again, but then it's up to them whether they decide to tack to go for that breeze down the left-hand side of the racecourse. We'll see. It is unfolding as we speak. The next minute and a half, crucial. Virtual Eye have Dongfeng race team just a nudge ahead. Matt Frey still trying to stay in here. They're always fast on these import races though, Matt Frey. Here we go, Dongfeng race team tacking onto starboard, so they are in the advantage position. Vestas 11th Hour Racing cannot foul them. They have to avoid Dongfeng race team. It's going to be real close. Can they lay up to the top mark? Oh, we'll see. Oh, this is going to be tight. And Dongfeng have done a great job. It's going to be a duck from Vestas 11th Hour Racing. A lead change. Oh, Dongfeng race team do a beautiful job of closing Vestas 11th Hour Racing out. Can they still lay this other mark as the Dongfeng race team take the favoured side and squeeze around and make life difficult for Vestas 11th Hour Racing? At the top, Dongfeng race team lead. Vestas 11th Hour Racing in second, just been overtaken by half a boat length by the Dongfeng race team. Unfurling their A3s and off they go downwind for a fast ride towards the bottom mark. Matt Frey on starboard, Axo Nobel on port. They're going to have to keep clear as well. This is going to be incredibly close. Axo Nobel third around the top mark. Matt Frey just behind them in fourth. Matt Frey looked like they're going to struggle to lay that mark. They just tacked a little bit close. Safe for Axo Nobel. Great sailing. Nip and tuck all the way round. Matt Frey a little slow around there. It makes it difficult for the bearaway, right?
Yeah, once the boat's moving really fast around the mark, you can just deploy, and it's going to be a lot easier on the actual trimming. But if they have to slow up like that, it's going to be a full grind there to actually get that A3 in all the way.
Turn the tide on plastic in fifth spot as they go for that left-hand side as well. This looks like a fairly simple rounding for them as they ease the sails out and deploy that A3. Fari doing amazing work, shouting about the need for reduction in single-use plastic water. It's really taken off. It's gone viral on all sorts of newspapers, magazines, and social media around the world. Great mission they're on. Team Brunel tacking around in 6th place. Yeah, keen for that left-hand side as well. A real slow tack, though.
Really slow maneuver there. I can't imagine that's going to be a gain. Yeah, it was just such a difference when you saw D coming around the mark, full speed, nice deploy, off and going, and they might have gained, you know, 10 bow lengths on that maneuver.
Yeah, well, here we are in Cape Town. It's the home of many a famous Volvo ocean race sailors, the likes of Mikey Joubert, Paul Stanbridge, Jan Decker. Let's go down to Nick Bice. You've done this import race before here in Cape Town. Tell us a tale or two, Nick.
Well, actually in 2005 on ABN AMRO 2, I was lucky enough to sail in one of the most iconic inshore races ever in the Volvo Ocean Race. When we left the dock in your typical Cape Town southeaster, there was maybe 5 knots. By the race started, we're in 25. At the top mark, we're in 30 knots. And at that time, we were doing a triangle finish type course. And we found ourselves in a spot of bother at the wing mark, and we actually hit the bottom with quite a big swirl running. And we thought we might have been still digging the poor old ABN AMRO 2 out of the beach right now. Fortunately, we made it out, made it up to the next top mark in 40 knots and finally finished the race in 50. Without a doubt, one of the most memorable in my history anyway.
Wow, wow, 50 knots of breeze at the end of the import race and going aground. Never a good time to go aground when you're on a boat, let's be honest. You want to try and avoid that at all costs. Here we go with Dongfeng race team on the way downwind. They're currently leading, and they've been putting Vestas 11th Hour Racing under a lot of pressure, and finally they just squeezed around them at the top mark with some great tactics. Are you surprised that Vestas 11th Hour Racing let them duck underneath them and take the right-hand side?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking a defensive move there would have been to tack in front, but the thing that Dongfeng had going is that they gained on the left, so it's really hard to tack in front when the trailing boat is so close like that. And therefore, then, like you said, the next maneuver becomes quite critical, and Dongfeng did a great job tacking right on a shy lay line that we call it, leaving absolutely no room for Vestas 11th Hour to come into the mark and take the room.
Yeah, some really nice tactics from the Dongfeng race team, putting Vestas 11th Hour Racing under a bit of pressure, and I don't know if you could call it a mistake, but I think it was really smart sailing from the Chinese team. Pictures of Vestas 11th Hour Racing as they come downwind on starboard. It looks like they've lost a few boat lengths to the Dongfeng race team, who are really on a roll, on a great charge in this Cape Town import race. Lovely pictures. We are blessed with incredible breeze for these first three import races. 20 knots heading 33 downwind. Vestas are sponsoring all our wind graphics very appropriately. They make wind turbines. I think they're one of the world's largest wind turbine manufacturers. They transport those enormous wing blades all around the world. And 11th Hour Racing and their other sponsors also have, here we go for the jibe, there's Charlie on the wheel. Let's take a look at this, talk us through, Sally.
Yep, so the main's coming over there, full trim on the main, and then at the ease of the Jenniker, and then full on handles, trying to get it all the way in on the new side. And the other important thing of the jibe there is to have the old sheet being quite flaked and not around anybody's feet, or the ease being quite nice and smooth, so it doesn't get the hang up around the front.
They go quite a lot slower through that jibe as they do this maneuver, so they go down to about 9 or 10 knots of boat speed from around 20. So you want to do as few of those maneuvers as possible. But Dongfeng race team look like they've done a tactical blinder here. They've sailed beautifully. They got that left-hand side, and that has really allowed them to stretch out. And now, tactically, they've put themselves in a position where they've got one final jibe in, and they can still take the left-hand side.
Yeah, and the thing I noticed with Dongfeng is it's the inches they're gaining in each maneuver, but also around each mark. That, you know, the Vestas, yeah, they rounded the first bottom mark in first, but a little bit sloppy, if you remember, on the main trim coming around, and just a tiny bit of difference between, you know, those two top boats.
Yeah, a little battle going on between third and fourth, between Mapfre and Axo Nobel. Mapfre have just managed to nudge ahead of Axo Nobel. Coming into the second leeward mark, it is Dongfeng race team who have captured the lead and are in first place. Dongfeng race team actually perhaps a little bit conservative on all of this. Then now they're getting that A3 down safely. As you can see, it's sort of snaking all around the front, and they really want to go around that left-hand mark. They really love the left-hand side, and look what a massive gain they've made on this downwind from Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Also conservative, Vestas 11th Hour Racing getting their A3 down as well. Mapfre and Axo Nobel look like they've made a bit of a gain into Vestas 11th Hour Racing as well. Charlie Enright and his crew on the defensive a little bit. Having a bit of trouble getting that down, are they, Sally?
Yeah, not the best furl. You can see the sail flapping around there as it's coming down. That's going to be a tricky one to rehoist, and they're probably going to have to be really conservative on that.
Vestas 11th Hour Racing with Charlie Enright as the skipper, Simon Fisher, the navigator, Mark Towell, the long-time friend of Charlie Enright, where 10 years ago they were put together in the Morning Light program, sponsored by Roy Disney, and they put together an amazing TV program, a movie, a documentary about it. And they've actually got Roy Disney Jr. sailing on board today as their special guest. Nick Dana, Tooney, Tom Johnson, Tony Mutter, Stacey Jackson and Jenna Mai Hansen, who we were talking about earlier, make up the crew of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Matt Frey have just managed to squeeze ahead of Axo Nobel. You can see when you don't quite get the trim right around the bottom mark, the boat comes slightly upright and it's not powered up as much as it could be. Next around, it's Turn the Tide on plastic. The skipper Dee Kafari, the navigator Nico Lundven, Martin Stromberg, Liz Wardley, who's the boat captain, Elodie Matreau, Francesca Klapcic, Bianca Cook, Lucas Chapman, Bledin Mon, Federico Mello and Jeremy Lecourdet. They are sailing with 5 men and 5 women on board the boat, a fully mixed team. Behind them come Team Brunel. Bauer Becking as the skipper. This is his 8th Volvo Ocean race. They're a little later to get that A3 down. Presumably it's better to get it down when you're on the downwind leg before you start going upwind. It's harder to battle it. Andrew Cape there on the winch and the leeward side. He's the navigator. Carlo Heusman, Kyle Langford.
30 seconds to attack.
On board with Team Brunel. Well, if the standings finish in this order, Dongfeng will leapfrog their competitors to lead the overall standings in the import race series. Everyone loving that left-hand side now. So Hunkai Scallywag coming downwind towards the bottom mark after that penalty that they had to do after an incident with Team Brunel. David Witt is the skipper with Annemieke Bess, Alex Goff, Benjamin Piggott, John Fisher, Luke Parkinson, who won the Volvo Ocean Race in the last edition with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Antonio Fontes, the navigator, Tom Clout and Conrad Frost. So that's their one change on board. Antonio Fontes takes over from Steve Hales on navigating duty. They're coming into the bottom mark in 7th place after that incident. And Xavi Fernandez on Matt Frey. He's made a crew change. Nettie is off with a slight back injury. So they've got Louis Sinclair on board. Louis Sinclair of previously Oracle Team USA and the America's Cup, and Nettie having his back looked into, Sally.
Yeah, I think it's an injury, a common injury for sailors, isn't it? You're lifting, you're constantly bent over, and we wish Nettie the best on his healing, and I think Louis will be just great there joining the team, and he's done some training with him before, so the gel has already happened.
Yeah, it looks like Nikolai Sersted is driving on this import race. Him, a very accomplished match racer, and he's previously done the Volvo Ocean Race as well. That's Martine Grail just next to him. She's sort of strategist and helping with tactics. She won a gold medal in Rio in the 49er FX class from a very famous Brazilian sailing family. And they've got a couple of crew changes. Alex Peller and Justin Ferris are on board. And Alex is a very accomplished round-the-world sailor, both solo, double-handed, and brings a lot of experience. Justin Ferris, similarly, a veteran of the Volvo Ocean Race. There we go with the virtual eye, as this is the penultimate leg as they head upwind now for the final steam down towards the finish. Here we go. Waves are building a little bit through the morning, and now lovely pictures from the stern of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. They've got a few of their guests on board, just nudged in towards the right-hand side. Everyone on the windward side, almost everyone. Nick Dana just on the bow clearing some stuff up, but Everyone on the windward side, that's to counterbalance the weight of the wind in the sails. Important. They also have the keel helping them do that too, Sally, right?
Very important. It's something we call riding moment. And the more weight we have on that windward side, the more you can push down against the wind and the boat goes faster through the water.
Look, it looks like deja vu. We're repeating that shot, Nick Dana now.
Yeah, they look a little more in trouble though. This hoist will be very interesting on their part. If you saw Nick tidying up the A3, it definitely came down with a very bad furl, and the risk here is that it's going to unfurl as they hoist it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't actually hoist until they turn the mark, which will also be another loss for them.
Okay, Sally giving us some wonderful insight. Sally, a veteran of this race, having sailed in the previous edition with Team SCA, the all-women's team, and we've got some beautiful pictures of the Dongfeng race team. And the rules slightly changed for this edition of the race. Crew, you're allowed a crew of 7 men, or you can have 7 men or up to 2 ladies on board, or you can have an even crew with 5 men and 5 women. A selection of those choices all throughout the fleet, but great thing to get women onto these boats, experience in the Volvo Ocean race and the Southern Ocean. You started the charge in the last race with a fully women's team. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think all the women on these boats now are gaining experience that not many have had a chance to do in the past. And you know, when we were on with the whole women's team, we didn't have that experience of, you know, going around the world with somebody 8 times, and now they get this chance, and they're right in there with these guys, and it's a big unified team on each boat.
And that was because before Team SCA did they had their team in the previous edition, the 3 previous editions, there had only been 1 woman who sailed on the boat, and that was the famous Adrienne Cahalan from Sydney, Australia, and I think she only made a few legs of it anyway. In fact, I think Cape Town was where she was replaced. So it really was a big problem not having enough experience, and this rule change has really brought a brave new world to this sort of offshore sailing. Here we go, Mapfre, look at that. Beautiful picture, perfectly framed. And Pablo Arate helming on Mapfre. Yeah, hang that one on the wall, look at that. Fantastic. I think Pablo will have that in his downstairs restroom for all to see when he has his cocktail party. There we go, lovely. Perfectly balanced, great picture. The jib and the main beautifully trimmed on, and the speed of the boat generated through the high pressure and the low pressure, and squeezing the wind in between the jib at the front and the mainsail at the back. 10 knots of boat speed upwind, and Vestas 11th Hour Racing just crossing ahead of them, but probably only by 4 or 5 boat lengths. And if what Sally says is right, and that furl on the A3 on Vestas 11th Hour Racing wasn't their best, could see a little more pressure with the American-Danish team of Vestas 11th Hour under a bit of pressure. But actually, you know what? It looks like Mapfre have got their hands full with Akzo Nobel. Tight cross here. Coming towards the top of this Dongfeng race team. Well balanced, look calm and happy. I think we got Nick Bice down on the water. Nick, give us an update.
Bit of a masterclass going on here from Dongfeng. They've sailed extremely well, nice and conservative, picked the nice shifts, and they're going to go, they're looking good for the win. But it's brewing up here in 5th and 6th position.
Well, just getting a little interference there with Nick, but thank you very much for the update. There's the helicopter giving us a big wide shot of Dongfeng race team. As you say, a masterclass from Charles Caudrelier and his gang on board, and really it was about the tactics. Tactics at the bottom mark, putting Vestas 11th Hour under pressure, and then seeing their opportunity to go around a different mark and then take the favoured left-hand side. Do you think there'll be a bit of conversation in the debrief at the Vestas 11th Hour Racing base later about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these skills that they have, the communication they're working with on the boat are leading to these decisions. And these are the same decisions that they're having to make offshore because it is so close out there after thousands of miles. And so that's what they're probably going to take forward. They're going to, you know, use the communication they made today and how that, you know, actually developed in the decisions they made.
Little unfurl there on the A3.
Yeah, and that was a tight one. So you can imagine what Vestas is going to look like. They need to get it all the way in the air, get the tack down before they can actually furl it back up. So hope this doesn't lead to another problem.
And you certainly don't want that unwrapping as they're still going upwind. That'd be disastrous.
Exactly. They would have to slow down. Otherwise, they're going to risk putting a hole in the sail.
2 crew changes on board the Dongfeng race team. Jeremy Bayou is off for a little rest, and Kevin Escoffier is on, and Horace is off and replaced by Black. And Dongfeng race team extend their lead around the top mark. Beautiful sailing. Dongfeng race team in first. Now looking back at that A3, oh, looks like they've got issues on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing. They can't quite get it up, and you called it, Sally, absolutely spot on. Trouble in paradise as Dongfeng race team bear away, and there we go with the unfurl, and that's why it's so crucial. So much sail. All good on Dongfeng race team. Now, it's the bit above the, it's the bit right up top there that's the problem. Vestas 11th Hour Racing having to keep clear because they're on port. Dongfeng race team are on starboard, and the wind shadow allows the boats to come up. But look at the battle behind them as well. Matt Frey and Axo Nobel going at it, hammer and tongs. Only half a boat length between the two of them. Axo Nobel, a windward boat, so they have to keep clear. And Matt Frey have the opportunity of just giving them a nudge, and they do. Look at that, Matt Frey luffing. Axo Nobel keeping clear, I think that's all okay, but they've got to come into this bottom mark. Vestas 11th Hour Racing will be very happy about this sort of incident. Remember, when Vestas come out, they'll be on starboard. Those other 2 boats will be on port. Oh, keep your eyes peeled, folks. Are Vestas going to be able to get out underneath them? Axo Nobel keeping clear. And they're also trying to hoist their A3s at the same time, Sally.
Yeah, full on here. The communications are going to be going crazy on the boats. Looks like Vestas is going to duck down below, and Mapfre's going to hold up Axo Nobel until they are clear on this mark.
Oh, this is aggressive sailing from the Spanish team, pushing Axo Nobel way outside the mark. And Axo Nobel trying to stay inside, and Pablo Arate calling for no overlap. So this is a really technical rules situation here, where Matt Frey luffed Axo Nobel and then came into this top mark and didn't allow Axo Nobel to get an overlap on the inside. So Matt Frey doing a very nice tactical job, real technical sailing rules they were using there just to push them out and allow them to get around first. Between the 2 of them, and that will be 3rd place around the top mark and 4th place for Axo Nobel after some cheeky shenanigans around the top. Matt Frey using the rules to best of their advantage to try and make that gain. Dongfeng race team, as Nick Bice said, a masterclass on the downwind, and as Sally Barco said, that is a problem on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing. A bad furl. Nick Bice down on the water. Tell us.
Oh yeah, this is going to be good. They've probably got a mile to run down to the finish here, and it doesn't look like that they're going to be able to unfurl that A3. So they'll be looking over their shoulder pretty hard at Matt Frey, who are just unfurled now and are about to hit their straps.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. It looks like your headphones after they've been through the laundry. Take you about a week to untangle that lot.
You know, there's a small chance here it comes out in the jibe, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try to put one in. If they're starting to lose big, they might put an extra jibe in to see if it's going to pop out.
Right, surely they want to be jibing this now. It looks like
Yeah.
they may be going for the jibe. Oh, look at that, it's terrible. Absolutely stuffed in there. And just because it's a furl, if it comes out, if it comes undone above, it's sort of unfurled. What's the story?
It essentially, if you can imagine, it kind of ties itself in a knot, and you have to, like, basically just jibe it. If it doesn't come out, then jibe it back. Really, this is such a big sail, they're probably going to have to furl it up and drop it in and fix it on shore later today. But, you know, if it's a little smaller sail, sometimes we can just aim dead downwind, furl and unfurl, and it'll come out. But it's this is going to be tricky. And the more that it's coming out on the top there, the more that it's tying a knot in the middle.
And potentially damage to the sail.
No, it's just going to add some extra wear and tear. Like, it's not good tying a, you know, bringing out a sail like that and putting it in a massive twist, but it should be okay. Their sails are pretty durable.
Not only that, Matt Freya going 6 knots faster. Here we go with the jibe. Are they going to be able to? Is it going to be able to untangle? There they go. The top bit's just swinging around. So what Charlie's trying to do is trying to steer under that spinnaker and just get it untwisting. And once it starts untwisting, it gets a bit of momentum and it'll undo. But it doesn't look like that's quite happened. And Matt Frey charging hard down on Vestas 11th Hour Racing, as is so often the case. Matt Frey in a come from behind in these import races.
They're showing these tremendous speed downwind. I know it's obvious right now, but the first leg and the second leg downwind, we saw Matt Frey gain all the time. So it's one of their big strong points.
Instruction from forward.
Charlie Enright calling for instructions from forward. Nick, shout it loud to the back.
What's that? Yeah, what's weather? Okay. Nick, let it go. That's the lured one.
Calm.
Let's grind the unfurl line. Let's grind the unfurl line.
They're searching for ideas, really, because they don't really know what to do. You can feel it's a real problem, and I'm not sure they have a solution. So,
throwing the magic 8 ball out. Ease the halyard, jibe again, pull it down, furl it up.
Yeah, it's not a good situation, and probably they're thinking right now, man, if we would have just been a little bit more patient and bore the boat away and then hoisted, and they might not be in that problem. But it's a risk-reward, gain-loss, you know, thing. And how do you know that's going to happen? Well, experience.
We're with Virtual Eye right now, and you can see 14 knots to Vestas 11th Hour Racing and 20 knots to Matt Frey as our Axo Nobel putting the charge on them, putting the heat on as the Dongfeng race team comes steaming down towards the finish. Look at the breeze in the middle of the racecourse there. Big puff where the boats are behind them. Matt Frey and Axo Nobel. You can see top right of screen as the spectator boats steaming down towards the finish. Lovely pictures, cool and calm. And down towards the finish, the Dongfeng race team put on a masterclass of sailing here in Cape Town and take the win. Beautiful sailing from Dongfeng race team.
Just turn left. Turn left.
Started nicely. They kept tracking Vestas 11th Hour Racing. They saw their moment to pounce. They jumped them, took the lead, and finished with a fantastic win here in Cape Town. Charles Caudrelier looking back, very happy with the performance. He'll be very pleased with that. Now, he is looking back because he is hoping that actually Vestas 11th Hour get across the line in second, because that will push Matt Frey down the scoreboard. And these are crucial points all the way through the Volvo Ocean race. Matt Frey, Axo Nobel and Vestas 11th Hour Racing all very close as they come in towards the finish. Looks like Vestas 11th Hour are back up to speed, 17 or 18 knots of boat speed. We'll get some live pictures as soon as we can and give you an idea of whether that A3 has unfurled, but I suspect with speeds like that probably has. But it may be too little too late, and they've given away a couple of boat lengths. Ooh. Matt Frey on the downwind. Eyes on the prize at the finish line. Can they squeeze into second place? Maybe they went a little beyond ley line as well, so that might give Vestas 11th Hour Racing a little sniff at this. No, don't think so. I think they're closer to that finishing line, the Amiga finishing line. Yeah, Vestas are now okay. They've their A3 is all right, but they're going through the jibe. Here they go with the mast cam looking down on that sail. The mainsail comes across and the A3 comes across, fully drawing, and now grind it on in. Coming down towards the finish, having had a less than perfect start, Matt Frey have crawled their way all the way through the fleet and finish with a fantastic second place here in Cape Town. Pablo Arati, the skipper, very pleased with that result. Pablo Arati, the helmsman, Xavi Fernandez, the skipper. They'll be very happy about that come from behind win. Really impressive performance from both them and the Dongfeng race team. And Akzo Nobel have kept the pressure on them, and they finish in third. Akzo Nobel keeping the pressure all the way around the racecourse. They finish a couple of boat lengths behind Matt Frey in third. Vestas 11th Hour Racing and now got their A3 unfurled. Coming down towards the pin end of the line, Vestas 11th Hour Racing, who slid down the leaderboard throughout the race, finish fourth. View from the race committee boat. Bill O'Hara there, keeping everything all in order. Some on board from Vestas 11th Hour Racing as they clean up and furl up their A3 and scratch their chins a bit about how they could have done that better. It just slipped away from them a bit. They've had such a good run in this Volvo Ocean race so far. Now we got a photo finish down towards the bottom. It is Di Kafari and Turn the Tide on Plastic who finish a boat length ahead of Bauer Becking on Team Brunel. Turn the Tide on Plastic take 5th. Team Brunel take 6th. Team Brunel with their Mondrian logoed A3. Very nice to see that out on the water today, bringing some culture to the Volvo Ocean race. Behind them in 7th after that penalty, it is Sung Hung Kai Scallywag. We're going to bring you an update after the show, and you can check out on social media. Ooh, Sung Hung Kai Scallywag. Are they furling? I think they're furling up there, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're probably done for this race. Just take it in nice and easy to the finish.
Yeah, and they really don't want to damage anything here. That's the most important thing. It's only Sunday at 2 o'clock local time is the start of the leg to Melbourne, 6,500 miles. Debrief on Dongfeng. Carolyn Brewer and Pascal Bidegari there having a friendly and animated conversation, as the French and the Italians are very good at doing.
Well done to them. I mean, when you can work through the fleet like that and make some good decisions and have good boat speed, they're going to be well pleased. Kai
Scallywag, they'll be sorry about that because they were looking great in the first round. They had a super start and they were right in there. But a little incident with Team Brunel put them back into 7th place as they come down towards the finish. Well, exciting. Plenty of breeze. And maybe we can go down to Nick Bice for a little summary of the situation and what you saw, Nick.
Yeah, clinical by Charles and his team there in Dongfeng. So, and not surprising to see them at the front of the fleet, and very nice comeback by Matt Frey. Bit of a pity there, of course, with Charlie Enright and his team with that furling incident, but that's sailing. And when you keep the pressure on to try and win this sort of race, those things happen. So bad luck to them. But, you know, you don't get much better than sailing on a day like this on Table Bay. Fantastic.
There we go, and it was a great battle actually between Akzo Nobel and Matt Frey as well. And Akzo Nobel get a few props for keeping right in it and keeping the pressure on right till the end, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they sailed a nice job. They've got a team that's coming together quite nicely now, so they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for the future on just threatening some of the top 3 who were there. And we can actually out of the water here. I think we've just snuck in just in time. We've got a massive cloud bank just brewing up behind us. And if we were an hour later, I doubt whether we'd be seeing any footage at all.
We might be able to repeat your story of 5 knots to 55, all in the space of an hour in Table Bay, and the beautiful scene of Table Mountain right in front of us, and that's Lion's Head just to the right-hand side of there. Sung Hung Kai Scallywag crossed the line for 7th place. Okay, let's take a look at the scores now for today's import race. Dongfeng race team take it with a very substantial lead of nearly 2.5 minutes over Mapfre, who came from what was a pretty terrible start all the way back to second place. Axo Nobel keeping the pressure on Mapfre, keeping them honest around the racecourse. Vestas 11th Hour Racing having that terrible furl up and unfurl, as Sally rightly pointed out. Turn the Tide on Plastic, nice result for D. Kafari in 5th. Team Brunel Bauer Becking in 6th, and then Team Sung Hun Kai Scallywag close it out with a 7th place. This, the overall import series points, with Mapfre just 1 point ahead of the Dongfeng race team, with Charles Caudrelier on 18, Team Brunel on 13, Vestas 11th Hour Racing on 12, Axo Nobel, the Simeon Team Pont on the up and up with 11 points, Sung Hun Kai Scallywag, David Witt on 6th, and rounding out in 7th, Turn the Tide on Plastic with D. Kafari on 5 points, just 1 point behind. Let's look at some of these statistics. These are fascinating. Look at that. Dongfeng race team sailed the least distance by some considerable margin, and they had the highest average speed, the highest VMG, and the least number of maneuvers. One wonders why they won, Sally. Some other notables there. Team Brunel extremely fast, but they did sail a little more distance, and Mapfre also fast, but they got around by having pretty decent VMG and just sailing a little smarter. But look how many maneuvers Mapfre did. They still managed to keep ahead. Some great stats that we can go into in more detail on the website. Sally, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that whole Mapfre extra maneuvers, you know, we saw them come from behind, so they had to do extra maneuvers to get out, but they really rely on their boat speed, and, you know, that's the chart that shows it.
Yeah. Okay, well, for those of you watching, thanks for you all, your comments on Facebook, and we're on Twitter today as well. Don't miss the action, and you can follow all along on Facebook at Volvo Ocean Race, on Instagram, hashtag Life at the Extreme or at Volvo Ocean Race, and Twitter at Volvo Ocean Race. There's plenty of action on Twitter. David Witt giving us the thumbs up. Also at Race Experts, they do a daily update at least twice a day when the boats have left, and make sure you download the app on Google Play or on the iPhone App Store. Well worth it. So Sunday is the leg start at 1:45 local time here in South Africa. Don't miss it, as these boats head off for 6,500 miles into the roaring 40s, the Southern Ocean. We're expecting up to 70 knots of breeze potentially in the Southern Ocean. It is going to be all on. Join us on Sunday, 1:45 local time.
Combine my eye with all of them to come out with my best.